You've heard the warning, probably more than once. Hundreds of millions of cars, all switching to electric, all plugging in, and a power grid that already strains every single heat wave. It sounds like an obvious disaster in the making. A car isn't a phone charger. It's one of the biggest appliances you'll ever own, and the idea is to park one in every driveway in the country. So it feels completely obvious that the grid can't handle it. Add that much demand, and the whole thing falls over. Except the honest engineering answer is stranger than either side of that argument. The real question was never how much electricity all those cars would use. On that count, the grid has more room than almost anyone expects. The problem, the actual, genuine problem, is too much smaller words. When and where. And to see why, you have to start with the number everyone gets wrong. Let's talk about total energy first. How much electricity an electric car actually eats in a year? A typical EV, driven a normal amount, uses somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 kilowatt hours a year. To put that in perspective, a typical American home already uses somewhere around 10,000 to 11,000 kilowatt hours a year. So adding one electric car to a house is roughly like adding a third of another home's worth of electricity. Real, but not staggering. Now scale that all the way up. Every car in the country, electric. When researchers actually run that math, the answer is consistent and kind of anticlimactic. A full national switch to EVs would require the amount of electricity the US generates to grow by only about 1% a year to keep up. 1%. And here's the context that defuses the whole scare. For decades, US electricity generation grew far faster than that, over 3% a year, as the country added air conditioning, computers, and everything else. We have done this before, at a faster pace, without the grid collapsing. So we simply don't make enough electricity for electric cars, is not the wall people think it is. The energy is there. The wall is somewhere else entirely, and it's a problem of timing. Here's the thing about the grid that changes everything. It is not built for average demand. It's built for the single worst hour of the entire year. Electricity demand rises and falls over the course of a day. It's low overnight while everyone's asleep, climbs through the morning, and then hits its highest point in the early evening. When people get home from work, turn on the lights, start cooking, and crank the air conditioning all at roughly the same time. The grid, and every wire and transformer in it, has to be sized to survive that evening peak. Now drop electric cars into that picture in the worst possible way. Everyone gets home at 6 p.m. and everyone plugs in at once. A typical home fast charger, a level 2 charger, pulls somewhere between 7 and 11 kilowatts while it's running. That's several homes worth of instantaneous demand coming from a single car. Stack thousands of those onto the exact moment the grid is already working hardest, and you get what engineers call the coincident peak problem. Read that carefully, because this is the whole trick of it. The danger was never the kilowatt hours spread across the year. We just showed there's plenty of room for those. The danger is the kilowatts, all landing in the same hour. It's not how much the cars use. It's how many are pulling hard at the same instant. And when you go looking for where that all-at-once demand actually bites, it isn't where most people imagine. Zoom out to the national grid, the big power plants, the high-voltage transmission lines marching across the country, and there's headroom. That's not the choke point. Zoom all the way in instead, down to your own street. The real bottleneck is a small, unglamorous piece of hardware called the distribution transformer. It's the green box sitting on the ground at the edge of a yard, or the gray can bolted near the top of a utility pole. Its job is to take the higher voltage running down the street and step it down to the voltage your house actually uses. And each one is shared. A single transformer usually serves just a handful of homes. Here's the problem. That transformer was sized years ago for the electricity those specific homes used back then. It has no idea electric cars are coming. Put 2 or 3 level 2 chargers on the same little transformer, all running at 6 p.m., and you can push it well past what it was built for. It overheats. Its lifespan gets quietly cut short. In a bad case, it trips, and the block goes dark. That's why utilities don't lose sleep over the national total. They lose sleep over clusters. 3 electric cars on one suburban block, sharing one transformer, are a bigger engineering headache than 3 million cars spread thinly across the whole country. The grid's weakest link for EVs isn't the power plant. It's the last 100 feet of wire in front of your house. So the timing is the problem, which is exactly why the timing is also the solution, because it turns out EV charging is the most flexible load ever added to a power grid. Think about how a car actually lives. It sits parked about 95% of the time. And to refill a normal day's driving, it only needs a few hours on the charger, not the whole night. Which means it does not care, even a little, which few hours those are. That flexibility is the superpower. Now remember that deep valley in demand overnight, 1 to 5 in the morning, when everyone's asleep and the grid is running half empty, with power plants sitting there underused. That valley is a giant amount of unused capacity every single night. So instead of letting every car pile onto the 6 p.m. peak, you move the charging into the overnight valley. The exact same kilowatt hours, just drawn at 2 a.m. instead of 6 p.m. And you don't need anyone to babysit it. You do it with time of use rates that make electricity cheaper at night, so charging automatically drifts to the cheap hours. You do it with utility-managed charging, where the car and the utility quietly coordinate. Or you just set a schedule in the car and forget it. Same energy, different hour, and suddenly the load that was supposed to break the grid is instead filling in its emptiest hours and flattening the whole demand curve. And you can push this further than just getting out of the grid's way, because millions of electric cars are also millions of very large batteries, parked, plugged in, and doing nothing most of the time. There's a technology for that, bidirectional charging, sometimes called vehicle-to-grid or vehicle-to-home. Instead of only pulling power in, the car can push a little power back out, into your house during an outage, or onto the grid during that stressed evening peak. Now the entire fleet becomes a giant, distributed battery, soaking up cheap, abundant solar in the middle of the day and feeding a bit of it back when the grid is tight in the evening. Managed that way, electric cars stop being a threat to the grid and start being one of the most useful things on it. Rolling storage that helps balance supply and demand. The catch is that this part isn't automatic. It needs common standards, utility programs that pay you for it, and chargers and cars built to run both directions. So it's arriving in pieces, not switched on everywhere at once. So, can the power grid handle everyone switching to electric cars? On raw energy, the answer is yes, and more easily than the scare headlines suggest. The country has grown its electricity faster, before, without the lights going out. The real question was always the smaller one. Not how much power, but whether your car charges when the grid has room to spare, and whether the little transformer on your street gets reinforced before the third neighbor plugs one in. That's not a physics wall. It's a coordination problem, and coordination problems get solved or fumbled depending on the rules we write. And those rules are being written right now, quietly, in places almost no driver will ever look, in the design of electricity rates, and in the upgrade plans utilities file years in advance. Whether your car ends up charging harmlessly at 2 in the morning or piling straight onto the 6 p.m. peak with everyone else's comes down to a single line in the fine print of a rate plan. Most people will never read it, but it's already deciding the answer.